Professor Kwesi Aning is security consultant, and Dr. Clifford Brymer, managing director, Ghana Water Company Limited. Professor Chris Gordon, Professor Kwesi Aning, Dr. Clifford Brymer. Good morning. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Great. So let me start off with you, Professor Chris Gordon. And this morning we've been talking about poisoned rivers. The Ghana Water Company has been warning us. Some time ago, we were told that if care wasn't taken, by 2030, we may have to resort to the importation of water. Today, as we're faced with this challenge, does it look like it still will be 2030 or probably earlier?
I would say it's likely to be earlier. But the thing is, we are already importing water. Yeah, we are already importing. There's imported water on the shelves in Ghana,
Sure.
Ghanaian supermarkets already.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
There are people in Ghana who do not trust Ghanaian water, so they rather drink Evian or something that is coming from France or somewhere else. So we are already there. The issue is how bad is it going to be?
Tell me, how bad is that going to be?
Ghana Water, I'm not speaking for Ghana Water Company, but they've been warning us about this for decades now. So I won't go into the water supply aspect. I'll leave that for Ghana Water. But this is nothing new. We as environmental scientists, we have been warning about the degradation of our inland waters, not just for drinking water, but for the habitat of all the organisms, the plants, the animals, the fish, mollusks that we use as food. The problem has been, Winston, that the scale of the pollution has moved from small to large scale. The position has moved from localized to extensive. And remember, water is a transporter. So anything that happens upstream in the catchment affects the entire catchment below. The intensity has also gone from chronic to acute, and many of the hotspots of biodiversity where we have endemic species and so forth have been compromised. Once water is contaminated, it also impacts the soil. It goes into the groundwater. What we have in our water are not just the sediments which make the water look like coffee or Milo, but we have heavy metals, we have hormones, we have petrochemicals, and the worst thing, of course, is when the water course is diverged. You have diversion of the water course. The metals of concern, cyanide, arsenic, mercury, lead, affecting everything and everybody. So the magnitude of the problem is immense. I do not see a solution in my lifetime. I have to be very honest with you. I have to be very honest with you because the level of pollution, the level of siltation is such that our entire water supply network, all our aquatic ecosystems have been compromised.
Professor Gordon, just hold on. I'll get back to you on this. How come you don't see that solution? We'll discuss that in detail. But let me bring in, Dr. Brymer. So, over the weekend, the Central Regional, Office of the Ghana Water Company Limited issued a statement indicating the challenges. You have also spoken about it. You are under the Ministry of Sanitation and Water Resources. Why is it that up to today, nothing seems to be done about the very menace that you say is hurting the production of water? Hello, Dr. Brymer?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
The question again, please.
I'm asking that your mother ministry is the Ministry of Water Resources and Sanitation.
Yes.
You have consistently complained about our rivers that you use in producing water for us. The situation, unfortunately, is getting worse. Why has your ministry, in collaboration with other ministries, not dealt with this problem that is hurting you so much?
On my part, I would say that we have visited the stations with the various ministers. They've seen the extent at which the water body is getting deteriorated, and I'm sure they've had their discussion at a higher level. But whatever that is limiting further action and whatever, I think that should be left with the ministry to respond. For us, we are looking at the quality and the effect of the quality on our production.
And talking about the quality of the water we drink. Now, in this documentary, your manager has talked about the difficulty you have to go through. You use the conventional means of purification. How safe is even the water that you give us?
For now, where all our tests and analysis show that we haven't gotten to the level where the treatment process is unable to take out some of the elements that are dangerous to the human body. But it doesn't mean that once it continues to accumulate, we're not going to get to levels that we might not be able to use the conventional treatment plants to do. And that's why the caution is very critical for us to all take that up and ensure that we do not continue to pollute so that we will get to levels that are not tolerable to the system. Then that can create problems for us. But for now, yes, we are using the conventional treatment plant, but the levels haven't gotten to a level of the risk that we can talk about.
So in effect, you're telling us that if nothing changes, it gets to a point you cannot give us safe water, clean water to drink.
We might not even have water because the process losses that we are supposed to have on our plants should be 5% or less. But now we are having between 35 to 50% process losses. What it means is that the throughput, instead of having 95% to the customers, you are either getting 65 or you are getting 50%. So that means that the volume of water that is getting to the customers are reducing. And unfortunately, for you to even get the 50%, the 65%, you have to use more chemicals. You have to use more expensive chemicals to be able to achieve that. Otherwise, you will not even get that. So there are so many fronts that we need to take up. And I think that this should go beyond just our rhetoric, should go beyond the political jargons to reality, that citizens must take control over their lives. And if you think that somebody else has been put in position to ensure that certain things are done, we might get to a stage where you have nobody to blame.
I know you may have your own projections as Ghana Water Company Limited. You've talked about the fact that if care is not taken, you may not have water. Based on your projections, how long, if nothing changes, would we get there?
It will be difficult. We have not done those analysis, and I am not in a position to put out something that I haven't assessed. And I'm sure probably Water Resources Commission would have done some studies. They would have done some modeling to be able to tell at what time that we are going to have our stream flows to a level that we cannot even abstract. But for us, we haven't done that. But what we know is that continuously the water that is available, treated water that is available for us to push to our customers, the numbers are reducing at very high cost. Unfortunately for us, we cannot transfer the cost immediately to the consumers because we are running the business. Somebody else will have to determine the price of my commodity. And so you tell the person that, look, I am moving away from aluminum sulfate, which is far cheaper than polyelectrolyte. But if I don't use the polyelectrolyte, I might not even get between the 65%, between the 50% and the 65% throughput of water that I will get to my customers. Unfortunately, I cannot also spread the costs of the new cost over the 65, because it's going to be so high that the regulator thinks the customer is not going to be in a position to pay. And so in all this, it's begin to shrink the company to get to a stage where you cannot even take the next step. And that's why these things are very critical. We normally appreciate some of these research people do, these documentary people do, but we should go beyond just seeing the pictures, being emotional about them, being political about them, and look at the core issues, and then we'll get to the level there where we can solve the problem.
I mean, before I go to Professor Aning, when you say we look at the core issues, what core issues are you talking about?
The core issue are that citizens of this country are those that are polluting the water. And the citizens of this country are those that are talking about the pollution. It's the citizens of this country that are saying that we have put on leaders that are supposed to stop it. When you are getting out of your house, because the state has police, you decide to leave your house ajar, and then you tempt the thief, and when they come to steal, you come and say that it's because somebody has not been responsible. Do we have to do that? Do we have rights? Do we have responsibilities? Is it the right that gives you responsibility, or is your responsibility that gives you a right? I think that it's because you are supposed to be responsible as a citizen. That's why the state will give you a right. So you don't execute your responsibilities, but you are talking of your rights. And so people must let us look at the core issues and then begin to be responsible as citizens, all of us, because the issues that are being caused are caused by citizens.
And they are caused by bad citizens, some of whom are armed and have backing of those in power. Professor Aning, certainly if I, seated here, decide to go and stop people who are engaged in illegal mining, I don't have... You expect our security agencies and those in authority to be leading it, isn't it?
Well, they will lead us because there are levels of very disturbing pollution. 2, this has moved beyond ordinary citizens raising their voices. What is happening is transnational organized criminality, in which I think one of my colleagues...
Prof, if you could kindly speak up a bit for us, we'll be happy, Prof.
Pardon?
If you could kindly speak up a bit for us. Your voice is a bit low. It's better now.
I mean,
yes.
This has moved beyond ordinary citizens. We are talking about levels of collusion spanning every single facet of the state, and transnational organized criminality with citizens from different countries whose activities, not only in the Galamsey, but for the purposes of today, it's Galamsey anyway, it's polluting water, is posing an existential threat to Ghana, raising tensions between Ghana and La Côte d'Ivoire, but even more disturbingly, that the money that are accrued from this activity are placing our international reputation at risk because it contributes to illicit financial flows and the funding of violent extremist activities elsewhere. It raises fundamental questions about the quality of risk assessment that we undertake in this country. How do we collect and analyze the intelligence? Now, in the last couple of days, the PRA has been in the news and the threat to water supply to Pecos and Elmina. The PRA, as my colleague from Ghana Water might confirm, has been polluted and has been getting worse over the last 20 years. Until right now, it is like in Pampa. Take cocoa. You see, for every state where its leaders either collude, are incapable or unwilling to use the power that they have been given in trust for generations yet unborn and deliberately allow others to come in from other countries to do what is happening. There's not only shame, but it's a disgrace. Because the heavy equipment, if I want to disaggregate those who are involved, somebody gives visas to the Chinese to come here. And the Aisha 1 case was very clear about the levels of state incompetence and the levels of state collusion. Nobody knew whether she had left this country. Nobody knew when she had come back. Nobody could dismantle her network. And we stood on the sideline. And that's one of my panelists said. Just talk. We are the only country in this world, or in history actually, that is not at war, but have voluntarily destroyed our water bodies. You destroy your water bodies as we've done during war to prevent the enemy pursuing you from getting access to water. Except right now we flip the conversation on its head. And we are saying that we are at war with ourselves. So please, the people from China, blah, 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 come and help us to destroy our water bodies. And I like the statement that the Chinese ambassador said a couple of years ago, that stop talking about China, because who gives them the visa to come to this country? At every embassy in Ghana, there is an intelligence officer there to assess the visa application. So we need to put a mirror in front of us. And then we need to tickle ourselves and laugh. Because we are just not doing what we are paid with the taxpayers' money to do. So right now, if you look at the levels of investment in the Galamsey, the Ghanaian component of that investment is very small. It's moved from illicit small scale to something else.
Chris Gordon, Professor Kwesi Aning, and Dr. Clifford Brymer with us this morning. So, Professor Gordon, you talked about how this was not going to be solved in your lifetime. Why do you say that?
I say that, Winston, because I'm a realist. I'm a realist. As several of your other panelists have said, the talk is too much. It's action, but action is not going to take place. You see, the true cost of water, which PURC does not want to pass on to the consumer because it will cause riot. If we are paying the true cost of water, so one sachet will be about 5 cedis, you find that people would rise up against the people destroying our environment.
True.
We have moved away from very efficient ways, very low-cost ways of treating water, to more and more expensive ways of treating water, to the point that Ghana Water Company is running like a sinking fund. It's running at a loss. It cannot maintain its equipment because it cannot get sufficient money to recapitalize simply because the cost of treating the water is too much. Now, a very important point has been made here about the fact that now there's even no water to treat. Now, if you add on the climate change dimension, where the erratic rainfall, the storm events, the flooding, which pollutes the rivers even more, if you add that dimension to this, I do not see any hope for the generation that we have under 18 who are growing up. We have mortgaged our future. We have to call a pile of shit a pile of shit. Why are we fooling around with words? We are watching this happen. We are running state institutions down because we do not have the political will to stand up to what is going around. But it's not only the politician. Every Ghanaian has a responsibility to do something about this. We are all involved, as a certain song said. I'm a scientist. I can do my part by carrying out studies to find out where things are going. But the chief who is watching, an assemblyman who is watching, the farmer who is watching. I'll end in a second, Winston. We have other people on.
Sure.
This gold thing, we've been mining gold for over 1,000 years. And I came across a quote from an Arab source from the year 900. Not 1900, 900. And the quote is, in the country of Ghana, gold grows in the sand as carrots do and is plucked at sunrise.
Wow.
This is the year 900. Now, when Norway, it wasn't even the Norwegians, it was the Dutch who found oil in the 1960s. And they started exploring the oil and gas underneath the sea. When the government of Norway initially started receiving oil revenue, a philosopher was hired to survey the ethical questions the new riches raised. A long-term strategy coupled with democratic governance and low corruption created good conditions for future revenue. Currently, the Norwegian Oil Fund is worth approximately $1.4 trillion. The annual revenue for 2023 was $213 billion.
Wow.
We have been mining our gold. We have been mining our gold for 1,000 years. You go to some of these gold sites, and it's bad. Yeah. So you go to a village which is totally destroyed. They don't have a water source. The people who have extracted the gold, whether it be Chinese, Russians, Malians, people from Ivory Coast, because your security gentleman has talked about the problem of this. Now that security issue is even bigger because part of the issues of heavy metal pollution is it reduces brain function. The young people cannot even be taught. And I have been to a illegal mining site, and the people there understand what they are doing. But they say, if I don't do this work, the only other work I know is armed robbery. Is that not a security concern? We are doomed. I will say it. I'm not optimistic. I'm not going to use rosy tinted glasses or try and whitewash the issue. We are doomed, and we are watching on, unconcerned. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Gordon. Professor Kwesi Aning, is there hope?
Is there hope?
Yes, is there hope?
You and I have had this conversation several times. One can see hope and a light at the end of the tunnel for several reasons. One, when those who are suffering themselves recognize that there's a problem and they need to change the way that they do things. Two, is that there is an informed leadership driven by the values of public service and civic behavior. These two critical elements are missing. That it will take sweat and blood to turn around what we are seeing. That recognition is not there for the next decade or two until we start dying off in droves. If you read the two manifestos of the two major political parties, this crisis is talked about in ways that shows very little political will to do anything about it. We are going to see more communal violence. They are increasingly very well armed, sophisticated Chinese guns in these mining sites. Small arms flows are available. The chemicals are in abundance. And we always talk, plenty, empty talk. The terrorists are coming. No, they are coming from nowhere. We are creating an enabling environment ourselves that is beginning to terrorize us. And it's the environmental catastrophe that we are looking at. I mean, go and read the Hansard. How many times has the Parliamentary Committee on Mines and Energy spoken about this? Probably zero. Okay? How many committees have been pre-established by government? It's just led to the same collusion, criminality, violence, misinformation, and disinformation. What happened to Professor Frimpong Boateng? If he didn't have his own reputation before he came to this country, he would have been shredded and destroyed. That is the extent of the problem that we are looking at. Hope is not a low-hanging mango fruit that you pluck. Hope is about deliberate hard work driven by integrity, a desire for public service, and a willingness to do the hard work. In all these criteria and variables, we are lacking in a disastrously disturbing manner. There is no hope.
Winston.
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt your flow, but I think Dr. Aning has just confirmed my statement.
Yes.
Because I don't expect to be hanging around for another 2 decades, given my age. So when I say not in my lifetime, he just confirmed it.
Yeah.
He just confirmed it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yes. Dr. Clifford Brymer. You.
I'm here.
Yes, you manage the Ghana Water Company. You have heard Professor Gordon, you've heard Professor Aning. In the next decade to two, there is no hope. Do you feel same, or you think that we can turn things around?
Water is a renewable resource. Water can regenerate itself. Once the activities that are causing the pollution are taken out of the way, the water will get restored. It could take time, but it eventually...
But it doesn't look like we have the will, Dr. Brymer.
Pardon me?
It doesn't look like there's any will to, curb these activities.
That will be the decision of citizens as whether we want to benefit today as against tomorrow, or we want to have continuous life. It is a decision that will have to be taken by citizens. And citizens, you are the fourth estate of the realm. You must take it up the way you are working. We've heard last week that the Ashanti has taken off 2 chiefs who he has seen getting involved in Galamsey or other activities that are polluting our water bodies. If all of us decide to do these things rightly, we will have a country to call our own. We are not going to get to those levels where we'll have to import water or will not have water. But if we continue to think that the resources we are getting from the water body, the gold and the other activities that we are using to pollute, it will be our program. I keep telling people, if you go to Weja today, it is not about Galamsey. If you go to Weja, it's about human activities outside those Galamsey and other. People are pushing their household waste into the Galamsey River. Why will this be? That you think that there's a flowing river and you can just discharge anything into it because it's flowing. It's flowing from your point to another person's point. So the citizens must take up the responsibility. And we should not just concentrate on Galamsey, we should concentrate on the general pollution of our water bodies. Even deforestation, that is happening. People are cutting down trees as timber. They are creating bare lands that will encourage runoff, that will collect whatever that is on the way of water into our river bodies. And so for me, it is the responsibility of the citizens to ensure that these things don't happen. The people who are causing this pollution are living with us in our community. We know them.
Look, can I please say something for a split second?
Please go ahead.
Citizens have a responsibility, but the nature of the criminality that we are looking at, and I've just mentioned Professor Frimpong Boateng's example, goes beyond the ordinary citizen. If we take rosewood and we see the volumes of rosewood that have been cut in the northern part of our country and sent to China, in which the Forestry Commission has been giving different statistics, it is not the ordinary person who can say, don't cut my tree, because they don't have that capacity, because a disaggregation of the number of important people armed who can move forces, who are networked to crush ordinary citizens is massive. So that's number one. Number two, I think my brother from the water company said something very useful. It is about institutions failing to do what the taxpayers' money pays them to do. So if we take Kaswa and the Weja catchment area, now we see the way that people are encroaching on land, stealing it. Okay, you can take that problem up to the responsible authorities. They'll just say, yes, open the file and leave it. Okay, we need a process where institutions do matter and ordinary citizens don't take the law into their own hands. Institutional effectiveness is much more important.
And let me. I think I can continue.
Yes, please. Yes.
Can I?
Please do.
You see, I have read. I'm not a lawyer, but the lawyers should let us know. I have crossed a line somewhere that has it. I don't know whether it's the Constitution actually. That water bodies can be diverted and mineral resources extracted from the riverbed. This is something that is lawful in this country. And so when the institutions are even going to go by it, and this law is hiding in some corner, it is going to be a difficulty. And so that is why I think that we must go beyond the ordinary and the lamentations and begin to take very serious action to ensure that some of these things are protected. I've said it somewhere, and I will repeat it here. People might not like it, that water resources are national security issues. Water resources are not for us, the civilians. In some jurisdictions, you cannot have access to any water body, whether treated or untreated, whether it's in the river, whether it's in groundwater, you cannot dare go around it because the security of the nation is at stake. But Water Resources Commission is dominated and is being run by civilians. And I think that we've gotten to a stage, if we want to take drastic action, we should find a way of repositioning water resources. Its staff are going to be civilians, but it should be under the jurisdiction and supervision of national security.
Thank you very, very much, Dr. Clifford Brymer, who is Managing Director, Ghana Water Company Limited. Thank you also, Professor Kwesi Aning, Security Consultant, and Professor Chris Gordon, Founding Director, Institute for Environment and Sanitation Studies.